First Federal Bank and Trust again recognizing another $1,000 cash winner and a $1,000 marketing donation match from Sheridan Media. As part of their community commitment, the YO Theater is receiving these funds per random drawing.
Could your organization be next? We're giving $1,000 to a qualified nonprofit organization every week. Visit our website, efirstfederal.bank, for details. First Federal Bank and Trust. Sheridan Media present Community Commitment. Member FDIC.
You bagged your trophy elk. Now imagine having its ivory handcrafted into the perfect piece of jewelry. At Legacy Diamond & Gems, their in-house jewelers can take your memory of the big hunt and preserve it into fine pieces of jewelry to last generations. Using your imagination, the skilled jewelers at Legacy Diamond & Gems can create something truly exceptional. Visit them at 11 North Main Street or online at legacydiamondgems.com. Hurry in now.
It's your comfort zone, your place to unwind, so why not have it be exactly how you want it? That's right, it's time to spruce up your home. If you're thinking about countertop remodeling in your kitchen, bar, or bathroom, think ahead and plan now so when you're ready for the big remodel will be ready for you. Sheridan Custom Stone is the most experienced locally owned stone countertop contractor in town, so that means top shelf work and great customer service. Visit Sheridan Custom Stone at 1765 South Sheridan Avenue today to start your dream project.
Tax season's greetings from your friends at H&R Block. Whether you choose to file virtually, in person, or via drop-off, let's make it a season worth celebrating. File your way with H&R Block and get upfront, transparent pricing, expert help at every step, and a max refund guarantee that means you'll ring in the season by getting every dollar you deserve. All tax situations are different. Not everyone gets a refund. Limitations apply. See hrblock.com/guarantees.
Hi, this is Barb Hodson with your family-owned H&R Block in Sheridan. Visit us today.
This is Ken here at Prime Rate Motors, where we understand everybody's situation is different. We recently had a customer that needed to keep his ranch truck, not trade it in. What he needed was a car for town. After visiting with him, we discovered that what he did have was an extra stock trailer. We were able to take that trailer in as a trade-in and got him a nice economy car that was good on gas and easy to park downtown. Stop in, let's work something out here at Prime Rate Motors, the Super Trailer Store, or primeраtemotors.com.
Let's get those paintbrushes rolling. Hi, Kurt Smith here for the Sheridan Commercial Company. Our True Value Paint Department has so much to offer when it comes to painting. Whether you need help with customized color matching or choosing a paint color combination, our True Value Paint Department can help you get started. We offer a full line of True Value and PPG paints, plus all of the accessories you need to get those brushes rolling. Great paint, great store. The Sheridan Commercial Company opens 7 days a week at 303 Broadway.
Good morning and welcome back to Public Pulse, brought to you by our friends out there at First Federal Bank and Trust. I'm Floyd Whiting. My guests this morning are Sheridan Police Department Captain of the Force, Tom Ringley, and Lieutenant James Hill. We are talking about intimate partner violence. And at the beginning of the show, we talked about its prevalence, its presence, and how it has changed through the years. Continuing our conversation, what strategies do the Sheridan Police Department use to try and prevent this? We talked about education. Let's get into detail on that education. Maybe that's I'm sure that's part of the prevention strategy in that department.
Yeah, so we responded to 100 calls in 2022 that we defined as intimate partner violence calls. Of those, not all of them involved physical violence. We also classified just our disputes and verbal altercations, things like that we responded to. So that's a spectrum of calls, which gets a spectrum of responses. And we've talked about our officers and trained them that on the incidents that they are intervening on that have not become violent yet, it's important to put in interventions in place so that that relationship doesn't become violent or doesn't escalate. That's the focus at each step, each call we go to, wherever it falls on the spectrum, whether it's a verbal dispute in a grocery store parking lot or a violent domestic disturbance in an apartment. We are trying to put interventions in place and take action so that it doesn't go the next step further.
Yeah.
So, for example, on the incidents that involve just verbal fighting, arguing, altercations that rise to the level that either someone involved or somebody witnessing it calls the police department and we arrive. We use our de-escalation and deconfliction skills that all the officers are trained in and are excellent at. I think that's something that people talk about a lot with police, and I'm biased, but I don't think that we get enough credit for how good individual police officers are about lowering the temperature of violence on scenes and getting people to be peaceful and calmly discuss things and reach resolution. So our officers do a good job of doing that, and that's their first task on a scene. Once they have those things calmed down and they're in a spot that they can do an investigation, determine one way or another, make sure that there was a crime that wasn't committed, then we start working into the education phase. And a lot of that has to do with letting people know that there's resources and support for them to help handle these issues, whatever it is that is sparking the conflict in the relationship. And we've got a brochure that we've developed. We've reached out to our community partners and have got phone numbers and websites and things like that on this pamphlet that we'll hand out to people and let them know, if you're dealing with substance abuse, here's some people you can contact. If you're dealing with economic hardships, here's some people you can contact. And that's a good way to kind of I think it's important for everybody to know. We talked about how prevalent this is. You're probably not the only person you know who's gone through this struggle or this bad relationship. And also that there are a lot of people and organizations within our community who are ready and willing to help. You're not alone. Yeah. And that's kind of the message we try to give out, especially on those first contacts that the police have. And we give that to both partners involved.
Have you experienced difficulty in trying to remove that stigma, that shame from an individual? Because, I mean, I think all of us would feel it, no matter the situation. You know, yes, we got into an altercation. Maybe it didn't escalate into violence, but it got loud enough that somebody called. And so the police had to show up to the door. Now I'm ashamed of myself, and I'm ashamed of my relationship. And those techniques where you just look at someone and say, don't worry about it. It happens to a lot of people, maybe everybody at least once in their life. Is that difficult to get through to people, to get them to communicate with you? Or are there strategies that you've been taught specifically to do that? Or is that more about experience?
I think a lot of it is just treating each call as an individual call. Each person as an individual person, approaching that call with just openness and empathy and working through the situation that's presented in front of you. You can't go through a checklist and then expect people to respond to that. So we talk about, we have prescribed strategies and things that officers know to do. And those are tools that they can use. They're not just boxes they have to check. Yeah. So they know what they can do to try and talk to people. And it's also important to realize you're not going to solve whatever it is that led to that dispute at that time, right? I can't spend 45 minutes with somebody and fix whatever years, months led to that issue. It's more planting the seed and letting them know that there's resources and other people that can help. We're going to put out the immediate fire. And then once that's done, kind of point them in the direction of other places that are going to be able to help, whether that's Northern Wyoming Mental Health or the Advocacy and Resource Center or Workforce Services, whatever it might be. But it's kind of just getting things calm so that they can then reach out for help later.
When we look back on the past, even if it wasn't true, there was always a rumor when I was younger that if a domestic dispute ends up getting the police involved, Captain, was there ever a time in your career where it was just the arrest everybody and figure it out later technique?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, there is almost always an aggressor.
Yeah.
A primary aggressor. People still have every right to defend themselves. And that's heavily interwoven into our policy in regarding domestic violence investigations. And a man or woman is not expected to take abuse. They, like I said, they have every right to defend themselves. But the term we use is the primary aggressor. We try to identify who started it, who's more importantly, who started the violence.
Who hit first?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a term called mutual combat, to where they both decided to fight. And in that instance, which is extremely rare.
Yeah.
I've seen it once or twice, to where two people are just drunk and they just
charging each other.
They just decide they're going to fight each other. So in those extremely rare instances, we have arrested two people. But there's almost always a primary aggressor, even if two people fight and there's a break and someone re-engages, the person that re-engages would be a primary aggressor. From my experience, a large percentage of during these incidents, it just doesn't start immediately. It's a slow burn throughout the course of a period of time to where there is a break and the parties are separated. And then the primary aggressor crosses the line to where it's no longer a dispute and they've committed a crime.
Well, I'm glad to hear that was, an urban legend where police just show up and arrest everybody.
Yeah, it's I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that does that. It's certainly not taught in the peace officers basic course at the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy. It's not taught in case law, but it's an urban legend, and maybe it does happen somewhere else. This is the only place I've been a police officer.
Yeah.
But in talking with my peers across the state at our Lieutenant Hills and Knight's level, it doesn't happen.
That's just not something that takes place.
Correct.
And that is an absolute urban myth, at least in our area from our knowledge.
Yes.
Well, that is good to hear. Now, during the initial training of our law enforcement officers, and this includes everyone who would go to the academy with you, so just at the academy in general, I think, how much time and training is devoted to intimate partner violence interaction or prevention up there just when you first enter the job?
I can't tell you exactly what the hours are, the curriculum are at the academy. I remember when I went through, I think it was a couple of days instruction where it was just focused on that. One of the important things about handling intimate partner violence or any sort of call correctly is, just as I talked earlier about having tools instead of checklists as you're going through things, is recognizing the tools that can handle various situations, right? We have our de-escalation techniques and ability to talk to people as a person and as a human is just as helpful on a traffic crash as it is a intimate partner violence dispute. So we are really focusing on our training and how we talk to our new officers during our field training program and throughout our in-service training is here's tools to use on various things. And we want people to approach each call as an individual call and not try to categorize everything and game out their response ahead of time, but use the appropriate tools for the thing. And that's our focus, is being outcome and mission focused as you go there and trying to achieve the goals that we want to achieve as a police department to make our community safer, and using those tools that is going to make it happen.
I've said it a few times on here, but, especially dealing with various crises, our police officers are not therapists, they're not counselors. But I just wanted to pose a quick question. If money and time were not an object, if we could take an officer, would you, in your opinion, Captain, would you want your officers to be trained counselors? Or do you want to just say, no, that's not their job?
No, much like everything, our job and our role is to recognize that a problem exists. We don't, much like mental health issues, we just have to recognize the existence of a problem. We don't need to know whether a person suffers from being bipolar or schizophrenic. We don't need to know that. We just have to realize a problem exists. And much like the victim in domestic violence, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And that there are resources to go to. I think some people don't have a clear-cut understanding of what we do. We cannot, like Lieutenant Hill said, we can't fix years and years of problems in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or an hour, or even a week. I guess in a perfect world, a former counselor would become a police officer, but you have to look at the personalities involved. Police officers have the working personality, which is essentially blue collar. We like to work hard.
Yeah.
Counselors probably have a different personality strengths to where they like to analyze and fix over a long term.
Go internal more than anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if I have the most common complaint I've heard over the years is that we're very robotic and black and white. That's often coming from people who don't recognize objectivity when they see it, and we're just not taking their side.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that I would like to touch on in regards to training, especially actually for all of our crisis type training, is scenario-based training. Thinking way back to 2000, a good percentage of the scenarios we participate in Douglas at the Academy were domestic violence based, and with good role players and fresh training of statutes, and also we're exposed to different perspectives. We just don't talk about the statutes. We hear from victims.
Yeah.
We hear from former suspects who have rehabilitated themselves and now want to help. So we're exposed to all angles of domestic violence and intimate partner violence, and that's what really helps us. It's like we're open, like Lieutenant Hill said. Every call is different, and every call is an individual call.
Captain, have you yourself ever experienced a situation where you saw an abuser reform, where now this individual goes forward into the community saying, look at what I did. I don't want you to follow that same path?
During trainings I have. In regards to someone who I may have
had interaction
with on a call, no, because we don't track them through the system.
Right. That's not your job.
That's not our job. And I don't like saying nothing. I'd rather use role instead of job. When people say it's not my job, when I hear that from people, it implies that they're not interested in it. I don't want
that's
to
a good point. So it's not your role.
It's not our role. There are different roles within the community, and those are counseling services and resource providers.
I like that. I'm going to change my vernacular when I address that type of situation, because I feel that you're very right. Too many people throw their hands up and go, not my job.
Yes.
And it's really given that kind of an ugly look to it.
Yes.
So not your role. Much better. Because,
and not our prerogative either.
Yeah. Not the mission of the department.
Yeah. I mean, we will talk to people, and people come up to us throughout the year saying, hey, this happened way back when, and it really helped. But as far as tracking them, no, we don't.
Yeah. I could only imagine the resources that would be needed just to do that itself. All right, on that, I've got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have more with our Sheridan Police Department. This is Public Pulse on 930 KROE and 103.9 FM. Sheridan.
First Federal Bank and Trust, again recognizing another $1,000 cash winner and a $1,000 marketing donation match from Sheridan Media. As part of their community commitment, the YO Theater is receiving these funds per random drawing.
Could your organization be next? We're giving $1,000 to a qualified nonprofit organization every week. Visit our website, efirstfederal.bank, for details. First Federal Bank and Trust. Sheridan Media present Community Commitment. Member FDIC.
Sheridan and Johnson counties for choosing Canes and allowing them to serve you during these hard times. Kane Funeral Home makes it their mission to take the stress and uncertainty out of ceremonial services. They own and operate the only crematory in Sheridan County, so your loved one is always in their care. Kane's Funeral Home. Call 673-5837 or visit them online at canefuneral.com.
Find Atlas Chiropractic at their new location, 41 East Burkett. They're still offering the same great service to all new and existing patients. If you have aches and pains or debilitating back or shoulder conditions, call Dr. Colin Hardy, 672-6000. He can alleviate your pain, reduce your physical stress, and boost and maintain your immune system function. With each adjustment, your central nervous system is supported and strengthened. Call Dr. Hardy, 672-6000. Schedule your appointment with the top chiropractic clinic in Sheridan, Atlas Chiropractic, now at 41 East Burkett.
This is Dr. Colin Hardy with Atlas Chiropractic. Be sure to ask us about our new patient specials. Take the first step to a better you. Call 672-6000. That's 672-6000. Your healing begins when you pick up the phone.
Face it, you don't want to do your own plumbing and heating work or repair. You need a professional, and that is exactly what you will get if you work with Wrap Plumbing and Heating. Being fully licensed, bonded, and insured, you can rest assured that they will take care of your repairs and maintenance in the very best way possible. Call Wrap Plumbing and Heating at 429-1196 and rest easy knowing it'll be done right. This is Dan Rapp with Wrap Plumbing and Heating. And as we like to say, if you find a leak, let me take a peek.
Wyoming Corporate Office is the trusted business choice behind thousands of businesses. Whether it's business formation, payroll, corporate paperwork, mail scanning service, or small business phone service, Wyoming Corporate Office powers over 100,000 businesses worldwide and locally. This makes Wyoming Corporate Office the state's largest business-to-business service provider, located right here in Sheridan, Wyoming. If you're drowning in corporate paperwork looking for someone with an unmatched experience that cares and wants to be your partner in making your business successful, trust that Wyoming Corporate Office can help you focus on what makes your business tick. Learn more today by visiting WyomingCorporateOffice.com.
Good morning. Welcome back to Public Pulse, brought to you by our friends out there at First Federal Bank and Trust. I'm Floyd Whiting. My guests this morning are Sheridan Police Department Captain of the Force Tom Ringley and Lieutenant James Hill. We're discussing intimate partner violence, something that affects far too many people in the world, far too many people that we know. Maybe it's affecting you. We've talked about trainings. We've talked about frequency here within Sheridan. What about the strategies? So, Lieutenant Hill, you spoke at length about the tools that people can draw from to prevent this, or people, our officers can draw from to prevent this from getting worse. But when you leave the situation, it's essentially out of your hands. If no one was arrested, or if one person was arrested, how often do you end up seeing the same situation again with the same individuals? How often are those resources actually being utilized?
I think actually there's probably more room for hope than what we generally think about in these situations.
That's good to hear.
Most incidents end up resulting in physical violence and end up in an arrest, because if there's been physical violence and we can determine somebody committed a crime, we're not going to tolerate violence. You're going to go to jail at that point. But most of those people, who got there have committed some sort of dispute or stuff before, right? We know that we've often been there before if it gets to violence. The other side of that, though, the but is most of the times that we go to a verbal dispute, we never go back.
Oh, wow. Really?
It doesn't. And so I think that's an important message for people in situations that are, if you're not in a good relationship, you're seeing kind of some of these warning signs of control and cycles of power and isolation, these things that are happening. It's not a one-way ticket. That relationship can take a different line. It is not doomed to violence. It's not always going to get worse. It could, and you need to listen to those warning signs. And if things continue to escalate, take steps to protect yourself and remove yourself from that relationship. Or, but if you find yourself in those warning signs, you can take some steps ahead of time. And that's kind of our message with these resources and getting them in touch with different partner agencies in the community is you're not doomed to violence.
This
you
can
find
be
a better way.
Yeah, there's hope. There's always hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you delivered that message, because that is something when you look at statistics and you're looking at just the numbers, it can be a little bleak sometimes. And you start to wonder, gosh, is this just the way we are? Mm-hmm. And to hear, an officer, a lieutenant, someone who's been around and done this for a while say, no, there's always chance for hope. I think that means a lot coming from both of you, that this isn't the road we all have to travel down. Now, what strategies do we actually employ to prevent IPV from happening in the first place? Is that do we hold classes, courses, or is that for somebody else? Where someone might think, I might be in this relationship, I should maybe attend this or read this pamphlet. Are there strategies that we have to help people prevent this from even starting?
As you said, we kind of point them to different agencies within the community who can address some of those things. Maybe you need to do a anger management, work with, Northern Wyoming Mental Health or another mental health practitioner to help you get some coping strategies, or you work with a minister. Maybe a faith-based organization is helpful for you to kind of do that. Or maybe it's just, I've got a lot of stress because a financial situation. Maybe I need to sit down with a financial planner and work on a budget. There's all of those things that I think are strategies to help and avoid that. None of those are necessarily run by the police department, which is probably a good thing. We talked about counseling and that sort of stuff earlier. I think it's good for each organization and person to have a specific mission and goal. And our goal is to make the community safe, to enforce the law, to investigate crimes. That's what we're here to do. And we want to prevent violence because that's about making the community safe. And so some of these other things are more appropriately handled by other people whose roles are more closely aligned with helping, whether it's financial counseling or personal counseling or whatever that might be to be helpful. And another strategy that we use is arrest. That's a strategy, and it's a viable one that we do. If you've committed violence, it needs to be known that you will go to jail. The police department and the community as a whole. Sheridan is not a place where we're going to tolerate violence, whether that's a fight at a bar or whether that's harming an intimate partner or a child or whatever. If we have probable cause that you've committed a crime of violence, we're going to take you to jail because that's what we've set up, and that's an intervention to let you know that we take this seriously and that that'll hopefully prevent things from escalating further, to know that you don't get a pass.
And I'm glad you brought that up as well, because that is a strategy, as you said, and something that happens and something that will happen. So let's talk about arrest. In most of the situations when violence has occurred, it's probably, and again, this is me looking from the outside, it's probably apparent, or is there a lot of investigation that has to go into the majority of these cases from what you've seen? Because in some situations, maybe the victim doesn't want to talk.
Yeah. We don't and can't make any arrests based strictly on hearsay.
Yeah.
We have to have evidence. When we have, especially with the domestic violence, it's important to note that the domestic violence statute mandates an arrest upon probable cause.
Mandates.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, and this is one of the very, very few misdemeanors to where we can arrest on it, even if it doesn't happen in our presence. We can arrest up to execute a warrantless arrest up to 24 hours after the incident took place. But all of our arrests are evidence-based.
Yeah.
If when we're called, it's generally for a reason. And then it's up to us to process the evidence on scene and to include statements and physical evidence, and make our arrest decision at that point. There is actually an unlawful contact statute, which is kind of can get in the way of I'm not a huge fan of it. It is a portion removed from the battery statute years ago where it's kind of a lesser charge. But in regards to a domestic violence arrest, if we have probable cause, which means it would cause a reasonable person to believe a crime probably took place, then we arrest.
In a situation where maybe a young man and a young woman are arguing, she goes to walk away, he reaches out, grabs her wrists. and prevents her from leaving. Is that assault?
Yeah. I mean, right? You're putting your hands on somebody without their permission. That's, as we talked about with battery. You're touching somebody in a rude, insolent, or angry manner. You're preventing them from their freedom of movement. Generally, if you're laying hands on somebody in the middle of an argument, there's going to probably be some sort of crime that was committed. And, you talked a little bit about our training and stuff and the investigation these officers go through. One of the things that we tell officers as you're investigating these intimate partner violence incidents is to treat this closer to an attempted homicide case and not a bar fight. Because this might look obvious to you, you want to gather up all the evidence because the victim may not want to cooperate further down the road. So you want to gather all the evidence so that even if they do not want to testify in court, you can still proceed with the proceedings because you have so much evidence gathered. And we say that also because we know how serious these crimes can be. I said before, it doesn't have to result in violence. However, we know that if there are serious incidences of violence, especially in a city and a community like Sheridan, it's probably going to be intimate violence related. So we want to make sure that we conduct these investigations with the gravity and the seriousness that they deserve to make sure that we are compiling a strong case and gathering the evidence and understanding the situation. We don't want to just show up and say, okay, this person has a black eye, this person doesn't, they're going to jail. We want to dig through and look in for all the evidence that will corroborate and surround the incident.
In a lot of these situations, because I mean, you're officers, you wear the shield, but you're human. You have to feel some sort of maybe anger when you answer to these calls, maybe to the same house every single time.
We feel everything. We feel empathy for the victim.
Yeah.
We feel frustration and anger. We'll act on our empathy, but we can't act on our frustration and anger, though.
Yeah.
What we personally think of someone committing a crime, and this goes back to hiring the right people. We don't act on our, in making an arrest, we don't act on our emotions. People frequently say to me, if I became an officer, I'd really crack down on it. Well, that's because you're acting on emotion there.
Yeah. The hatred of the crime.
By all means, we act on give positive emotion to victims, but in regards to making arrest decisions, it's all statute-based and evidence-based, of course.
And that takes a lot of self-discipline, I think. And I think self-discipline is something that we haven't spoke on a lot, when especially, talking about hiring the right individuals.
Yes.
I think self-discipline is a huge, huge factor in that. Because we've all seen those individuals who do act on emotion. Their emotions control them. And, that would lead down a bad path if now they had the authority of an officer behind that.
Yes.
And throughout the nation, we've seen those situations. Luckily, not here. Now, as a reminder, we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want people to know Sheridan Police Department has a safe exchange place. What is this?
And we've had this for a year, and we're still proud of it. It's for any reason to where people are exchanging anything. It's on a recorded camera. We'd recommend people conducting child custody exchanges, or if they're selling goods. We just read about it. Actually, an off-duty officer in New York was shot and robbed of money because he was going to buy cash. He had cash to buy a car. It was a bogus social media thing, and he was shot and robbed. This is a safe place to conduct transactions. We're not going to come out and watch and mediate anything, but it's on camera and it's out in the open to where everyone can see you in a very well lit area right in front of the police department. The spaces are clearly marked.
Fantastic. So if I need to have an exchange, that's where I can go.
Yes.
And I know you've got my back.
Yes.
That's fantastic to know. Utilize that, folks, if you can. Also, if you are in immediate need of assistance, call the Sheridan Advocacy and Resource Center Crisis Hotline, 307-672-3222. If you need help, please contact the Sheridan Police Department, 307-672-2413. Captain LT, I want to thank you both for coming in here and speaking with me about this. It's a sensitive issue, but it's something that we need to talk about. We need to destigmatize certain situations and ideas within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Floyd.
Thanks a lot for having us.
All right. You've been listening to Public Pulse on 930 KROE and 103.9 FM. Sheridan.